Welcome back to another episode of the Field of 68's 2024 NBA Draft Prospect Profiles presented by Unified Healing. My name is Rob Dosser. I have the man, the myth, the legend, Randolph Childress here, and I am going to make him say nice things about a Duke Blue Devil today, which is honestly, I think, Randolph's favorite part about doing this show is he gets to say so many nice things about Duke players and North Carolina players. Look at that smile on his face. You know he's loving it. Kyle Filipowski, we're breaking down Flip's game today. A 7-foot, 250-pound tweener. I think he's
Yeah.
a modern day tweener, and I'll talk about why I think he's a modern day tweener. But he finished the season averaging 16.4 points, 8.3 boards, and 2.8 assists while shooting 35% from beyond the arc. He is a guy where he's gotten better as a passer, he got better as a shooter. I don't know if he necessarily needs to be a great defender, but I kind of struggle seeing exactly what role he could be a starter in at the next level in the NBA. So let's start out with this, Randolph. His strengths. When you got a 7-footer with this level of skill, that is a very difficult thing to find.
I think he's like you said, he's a tweener. He could be as a stretch five. I do think his jump shot's improving. I think it's improved from his freshman year, where it was like 28% to like 34% last year. I think he'll continue to improve. It wouldn't shock me if he's a high 30s and had a 40% three-point shooter year during his career. Um, the problem I think he'll have is at the stretch four spot, unless he's playing with an athletic guy, like a Giannis at the four that can switch and you can hide him on some fives, nobody's inside. He's going to have to be a drop coverage guy. But he's better at defending the ball than people give him credit for. Now, I
Yes.
just think there's a difference in the dynamic of guards that he'll play. And I don't like saying the Kyrie Irvings and the Stephs because nobody defends them that way anyway. There's no big that switches on those guys and does a great job, probably outside of Bam out of Bayou. So I think he's
There's a
better.
reason they're Kyrie and Steph.
Right,
Right?
right,
There's a
right,
reason
right.
why
People
those
people
guys
always
are
want to use
those
that and be like,
guys.
"Oh man, he can switch on Steph. Can he switch on Kyrie?" Nobody can switch on Steph and Kyrie and De'Aaron Fox and I mean all those guys. So I think I think Flip is better defensively than people give him credit for, but I still think his strength will be finding that matchup at times. Somebody will get a really good skilled guy that can ball mover, high IQ. Uh, and I want to see what he is, Rob, when he gets a full off season. Let's not forget the
Mhm.
guy had surgery coming into his sophomore year. So to get with a program where he's going to physically be stronger, I think some teams are going to judge him off of him playing at Duke, and I think he'll slip. But one of the more effective guys, I think, can be, at his side. There's not a lot of seven. He was the most skilled 7-footer in the country. I mean, offensively, there's not many things that he can't do. He's not overly athletic. I mean, every one of these guys will have some defensive challenges, but Flip is interesting to me because I think his shots, his statistical numbers on his jump shot will improve. Um, but early on, he's got to find the right matchup like everyone else. But I think playing in drop coverage as a backup five, he can switch with certain guys on the perimeter. I don't know if he'll be a great defender, but he's better than people give him credit for. He's not a horrible defender.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what I was getting at when I was calling him a tweener, right? I think where he is or where the NBA is right now, he is a guy who is probably at his best guarding fives, but he's not exactly a rim protector. You want him in drop coverage, but he's got a wingspan that's less than his height. I think it was
Yes.
6'10" and a half, and he's
Yeah.
listed at 7 foot in shoes, right? So we're not talking about this super long dude that's going to be able to kind of take away the pass and be really effective in what drop coverage is asking you to be. He's also a capable dude on the perimeter, but he's not necessarily someone that you want guarding some of the best think about all the best big wings in the NBA, like the
Right.
Jason Tatums and the LeBron is kind of in that role, and like all of the guys in that mold. That's kind of what you're asking a four-man to play in the NBA, and I don't think that Flip is the kind of guy you want on those dudes either. Like he's better than you think, but he's not great out on the perimeter, right? And then you think about the role offensively, you know, he was at his best this past season as a pick and roll slash pick and pop big and a guy that you throw the ball to in the post. But he's not someone that you're throwing lobs to, right?
No.
He's
No.
not this elite 3-point shooter, at least not yet. And how many people are actually posting up in the NBA and just kind of saying, all right, you're going to get the ball 8 feet from the rim, go make a play and go get us a bucket. So um, I think that when you have someone that is his size with his skill set, you kind of know exactly what their role is going to be, right? You kind of know that they're going to be your backup 4/5 that's going to give you minutes at each spot. That's probably not going to give you starters minutes that you want to put next to a 5 man that's going to be like a in the Robert Williams, Mitchell Robinson mold, or 4 man that's going to be more athletic and quicker and can help protect the rim a little bit, right? I think that he kind of has found himself where the versatility really worked in college and made him really effective. You kind of run into a situation where that like you need to be better at one of those things and not just good at both of them. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense, but I will say this. I think he's a guy that can cause problems defensively for you if you try to punish him inside with a guy that's not really effective offensively, because I think offensively he does so many different things. Like he can
Mhm.
be a guy that if he start, as he improve his jump shot, he's a footer that can put it on the floor and make plays.
Yep.
So there's still not a lot of guys. I mean, that can put the ball on the floor and make plays. Like he comes in doing that. We're not talking about his game evolving as a playmaker. Like, he played the 5 at Duke. He played the 4 and the 5 with those guys. He has switched in the ACC guard. I've watched him switch on guards in his league and sit down and guard them at the 4. And when they've gotten in trouble, he's done that. So he'll be asked to do it. It's just at a higher level. And again, he has to get better at it. But I'd be curious to see, I think his strength will be I can guard your guy. He won't hold up against the physical bigs inside. It's like trying to say, hey, Joker's gonna kick his ass. Well, guess what? Joker kicks everybody's ass. But can he match up on your backup big and play that kind of style, and offensively attack him a little bit and be a ball mover, drive close out. I think that's just where his strength's gonna be. And more of what you're getting with that. He's a willing rebounder. I don't think he's great. He doesn't rebound outside of his area, but he'll get you, decent amount of rebounds. I think given it a right opportunity. So I like him a lot. I like Flip a lot. I think he's a guy that he slips some in some people's minds as a draft pick, but the further he slides in the middle of the first round or wherever he goes, I think they're getting himself a guy that can contribute to him fairly early because there's not many footers again that's as versatile offensively as he is.
I absolutely think that he is a long time NBA player. Like I think
Yeah. Yes.
he'll
Yes.
play in the NBA for
Yes. He's
12 to
double
14
digit
years.
years. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's just he's not when I think of a McDonald's All-American at Duke, a 7-footer that makes threes and average 3 assists a game, like when you kind of think about that framework and just those specific numbers, you're like, oh wow, we're talking about a dude that could be an all-pro one day. And I just don't see that in his ceiling. I think he is a backup big that will be an effective backup big for good teams for a very long time, which we might as well get into the comparison portion of the programming here.
Right.
And you're going to be shocked, RC, when I compare him to nothing but 7-foot white dudes. All right. But I think that there are so many guys that kind of fill that mold. I think let's just say everything works out, right? And he becomes an
Right.
elite shooter. He becomes a good passer. And the shot, like the individual shot creation stuff, he gets much better at. Like, I think that there is a world where you could see him be almost Laurie marking it, right? Like, I don't think he is quite the shooter, but if it all comes together, I think that is like that's your dream. If you're drafting him in the lottery, it's because you've watched him play and you're like, yes, look, you know what? We do this, and this is how we get Kyle Filipowski to be Laurie Markkinen. I think that's the top 5% outcome in terms of what he could end up being. Whether you are a world class athlete or a podcaster like me, we all understand the importance of mental and physical well being and proper recovery for top notch performance. After a 6-month season loaded with cross country travel, I can promise you that proper recovery is a priority for me these days. That's why I'm excited that Unified Healing is sponsoring this episode of the Field of 68. Unified Healing is a new and super innovative global network of wellness centers powered by Energy Enhancement System, or the EE system. If you haven't heard of the EE system yet, you'll want to listen up. This technology promotes wellness, deep relaxation, purification, and rejuvenation. Whether you're here in New Jersey or at one of the hundreds of other locations across the globe, access to a center is easy and affordable. If you're interested in experiencing the EE system technology for yourself, go to unifiedhealing.com/unified68 to learn more and find a center near you. That's UNIFYD healing.com/UNIFYD, the number 6, the number 8. No material or testimonials on the Unified Healing website are intended to be viewed as medical advice or as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, including the EE system.
I agree with you now. It's hard to envision him being that great of a shooter or that good of an offensive talent early. I'm going to go the other way on it. I want to see what he looks like completely healthy, full off season physically. He's already 7 feet 250, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you add as he becomes a man physically, I think the ideal spot becomes your 5. He becomes your everyday 5 man. And I think all the things that we're talking about now become a asset, his mobility and everything as a 5. And he's never going to be a lob guy, but he's going to be a pick and pop guy. And that's fine, because now it becomes and because what he will do when you switch, he will, and he is skilled enough to take that guard or those smaller wings inside and score over him and punish him inside. So he'll need other guys to play with him, but I think that's where his ultimate success will be, is once he physically matures and being a 5 man. But when you talk about starting 5 man, again, I'm not talking about the guy, the Jokic's, and everybody wants to compare him to those guys. Nobody guards those guys. But if look at the teams in the final, if you want to say a Rudy Gobert, who's not an offensive guy, he's going to force a guy like Rudy Gobert at the 5 to say, you got to guard on the perimeter now. So now it's become switching and things like that. So I think that's where his strength really lies and what he could be. It's just going to take some time. We just don't know, because we talked about it again. He went from, with I think it was double hip surgery or something like that coming into his sophomore year. I know it was one of his hips. So, we getting him in this season, having whatever team selects him, getting him, with them in their program and seeing what his body does, I think that'll be I think his success will be more as a 5 than it is as a 4.
Yeah. So here's the more realistic comparisons that I kind of put together. One of them would be Frank Kaminsky. That's probably a little bit on the lower end for what he could end up being. Santi Aldama, if like he really becomes an elite shooter, but that's kind of all that you get out of him. I think the most likely long-term outcome for him is Kel'El, a guy that averages 10 points this past season. Or for his career, no, this past season, Kel'El averaged 9.8 points, 5.3 boards, and 4.4 assists, while shooting just about 35% from 3. He's a career 10 points, 5 rebounds, 2.5 assists guy, shooting 37% from 3. And he's been in the NBA since 2013. We are literally heading into year 12 next year for Kel'El, and that's what I think Kyle Filipowski long-term probably will end up being.
I couldn't agree more with that. I think that one is the one I think he's more likely to be. And then the talent around him will dictate how much better or how much worse he is.
Yeah. We didn't actually, we haven't really talked about this yet, but the one thing where I do think there is a little bit of upside there, I made fun of you about this pretty much all season, but you compared his ability to grab and go to Giannis, right? And I do think that there is some of that he will be able to do in the NBA. That's more of a transition game. He could handle the ball. He could take you coast to coast.
Rob, that's what we're saying. Yeah. The people who hadn't watched him play or watched him play a lot, and that's why I say, we talked about this with Rob Dillingham, how he'll get drafted so high, his expectations will be the issue for what he is. I think the opposite could be the case for Flip. I think he can go somewhere and you can be like, oh man, he can snatch and go. He can't catch it on the three. Like, he's a guy that's going to be able to catch it on the 3-point line and then drive you. Like, he's going to be able to do that. He will go inside and punish smaller guys. Like, that's where he'll be effective of attacking matchups. So he can be a little bit better offensively because he's going to have more help. I think obviously at the next level, and he could do that as he gets more consistently shooting. I think that the Olynyk comparison is that, but if he gets with the right team like anyone else, I think his ceiling could be higher as a stretch five as he physically matures and gets healthy in the league. And he's one of those guys I'm really like, man, who gets this guy? What talent is around him, and who gets him? Because I think that's the role I think is best for him.
Yeah, the more I watched tape on him and kind of thought about him as a player, the more I liked him as a value pick in that. Like most of the mocks I've seen have him kind of right outside the lottery in that like
Yep.
15 to 20 range.
Yep.
And I think if you get him there, then you're actually getting a lot of value out of
Yes.
that draft pick. It feels like he went from one of those guys where it's like, wow, I don't know if he's a top 20 pick last year, comes back to school, doesn't have this outstanding breakout all-American kind of a season. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, is he really that good? And it's like, yeah, he really should probably be a top 20 pick in the draft. So that's where I'm at with Kyle Filipowski. Listen, this has been another episode of the Field of 68 2024 NBA Draft Prospect Profiles. Make sure you keep it tuned here. We're going to have a live mock draft here at some point in the weeks leading into the NBA draft. We'll have more info on that. So make sure you keep it locked. Field of 68 for Randolph Childress. My name is Rob Doster. We'll see you next episode.